Hey everyone, diving into the world of software innovation and more today with ThoughtWorks. Rachel, how are you?
I'm great, Evan. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much. Really intrigued by ThoughtWorks and your mission and vision. You guys are a powerhouse, 10,000 thought workers around the world in dozens and dozens of countries. Really intriguing. Tell me more. Tell us about your role at ThoughtWorks and the big idea.
Sure, yeah. I've been at ThoughtWorks actually 14 years, which I think says a lot about a company when you stay there a long time. ThoughtWorks is a global technology consulting firm. We specialize in helping clients build, run, modernize software really well. It's kind of, we have a backbone and a history of doing that, as well as putting out thought leadership to that effect. So things like the first book on microservices, data mesh, continuous delivery. And that's what's always really excited me about being at ThoughtWorks is we're a company that's like looking at the next tech or even introducing the next concepts, and looking at how we can apply that to clients and share that with other clients. And we have a very fairly open book policy because, we're pretty open about what our secret sauce is and how we think about technology,
Mm.
because it's not easy to replicate, because it's just our whole culture is built around it. But I am the global chief technology officer, so I am accountable for coming up with and setting our technology strategy, which I think is like the kind of core product strategy of what ThoughtWorks is and what we do and how we get that out to market, and how we can kind of learn from what's happening in the world. So that's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. And almost 15 years at ThoughtWorks. That's like several lifetimes in tech. Tell us about that journey. It must have been quite intriguing.
It has been a big journey. Yeah. I mean, I started in London, you may tell from the accent, although I'm from the north of England, as a software developer. I spent one of my first actually gigs with ThoughtWorks was teaching some JavaScript developers how to do test driven development when people were like, you can't do TDD with JavaScript. And I'm like, watch me. So that was a lot of fun. I also spent some time in India at our ThoughtWorks University. So we send consultants from the field to teach people fresh out of university about like the ThoughtWorks ways of working, XP practices, all that good stuff. That was super fun and really got the shyness out of me, believe it or not. Before then, I was terrified of public speaking. But after you have to get on stage and educate students on, how to write test-driven development and object-oriented programming and how to think about, agile software development practices, you kind of soon lose the scaries around like speaking in front of an audience. Eventually found myself in North America as a technical leader across New York, and then moved into the technical leadership role across all of North America. And then as we started service lines, I was leading enterprise modernization platforms and cloud globally. And then last year took on the role of global CTO. So it's been quite a journey, lots of different countries, constantly changing roles, but also, we're in an industry that is always changing. So I just recently gave a talk on, like career advice, and I was like, you just got to keep learning. You've got to keep learning all
Mm.
the time.
Yeah, absolutely, especially now. And you deal with so many IT leaders, business leaders across the tech landscape. What's top of mind to many of them today? What are they thinking about? And in turn, what are you helping them with primarily?
It's a great question. And I recently just was in Australia because I do various trips around the world to meet different technology executives and see, what is top of mind for them. Yes, there's a lot of push around Gen AI and doing things with Gen AI, but a lot of them laughed when I jokingly called it bod-driven development of like, the boards around the world saying we must do something with Gen AI. So like, what's the AI strategy? And it's like, well, that's clearly the wrong question. It's like, what's your business strategy and how can you apply this technology to solve that problem? But that very quickly turns into, well, what's the state of your data architecture? Can you access your data? Is it in what we kind of have been advocating for the last few years in a product data product style that allows you to really gain insights from it. And then the other piece of it is like, how can you apply it to the software development lifecycle, where I think there is real application today. And I think, the industry is quite myopically focused on, generating code, which is just one small subset of a software developer's life cycle, which is one small subset of the whole software development life cycle. And so we're thinking about, how can you leverage the ability to like share context and share prompts, to share knowledge across the teams, help generate test cases, help generate, product ideas, like what are the different ways that you can use these tools. And then the other big space that, clients are always dealing with is legacy modernization, right? Many systems are very old, and even the ones that are new aren't always in the best state. So there's always this continuous evolution, continuously modernizing systems. And so another thing that's top of mind again is like, how do we leverage the new tools like Gen AI for legacy modernization, the ability to understand code, the ability to kind of interrogate code through a chatbot. So there's some, pretty cool stuff happening in that space at the moment. And I think like every client that I speak to around that is really interested in what we can do in that space, because modernizing code is a big and expensive undertaking, and anything we can do to de-risk it and make it easier and take too many like single points of failure people out of the problem, the better it is for everyone.
Yeah, great points. So I guess we call it technical debt, but everyone has their own kind of exact definition of tech debt. How do you think about it? How does it impact teams and projects and innovation? And what are you doing there to address this challenge with large global clients?
So tech debt does have many definitions. It's been around a long time. I think it was Ward Cunningham that originally kind of termed it back like 30 years ago. I will say everyone has it. It's not something that you ever get rid of or completely eradicate, because there's different reasons that it occurs. So even if you have a team that's, very focused on ensuring you have the right level of testing, and you've really thought deeply about the architecture and, how the software is going to be used in production, there are so many unknowns once it actually gets into production. Not to mention the fact that the technology, we're building on shifting sands all the time. The technology changes underneath us. Like as as cloud became, the way, or the default way, I guess, over the last 10 years of doing things, that changed how you had to architect systems, right? And how you thought about architecting systems if you really wanted to leverage the use of the cloud. So you could just say like, oh, well, everything that was designed before is technical, is technical debt, is something that's legacy. But you also, there are reasons for it beyond that, which is, just getting products to market. If you're in a startup environment, you're not thinking about technical debt. You're like, we have to get this product to market. And even if you're not in a startup, if you're in a situation where it's competitive and you need to get a feature to market, that's a similar situation. The tricky part is if you don't know about it, you're not managing it, you're not looking at how you can continuously improve it. And that's how we think about it, right? Which is, it's why we've written books like Continuous Delivery and Evolutionary Architecture over the years. Is one of the big issues in the industry is this kind of old way of thinking of like, you build something and then that's it. It just goes into run mode. And it's a fallacy, frankly. Like most things don't. Most things continue to change. Most things need to continue to change. And so building systems with that in mind, and knowing that you'll never get rid of all the technical debt. You just have to prioritize, like which ones are you going to tackle? What's most important to you? And then in order to prioritize, you have to know that you have it, which comes back to that, like how well do you know your systems? How well are they tested? How well is your architecture tested? Like, so it's this like constant effort that needs to be invested in. And just thinking about products and throwing them over the wall is really where the problem starts.
Great insights. And, what are some early signs that, you're building technical debt and it might be a problem? How do you think about that as part of the software development lifecycle?
Yeah, there's a lot of signs. I think from my personal experience, when I was deep in writing code myself, it's like things just start taking longer and longer to get done. And then you've got, more and more last mile problems. It takes longer and longer to get it into production. There's more integration issues. Like these are all like glaring issues of technical debt. And then that, of course, like creates more cost in building the software. Something that, you think should be pretty easy to do is suddenly takes weeks or months. And then there's obvious stuff like, you're getting errors and issues, customers complaining about stuff, getting lots of bugs and missing deadlines and things like that. And then there's the catastrophic stuff, which ends up in the news, which nobody wants to be in, of like, that's the real lagging indicator at that point of like, there's some real problems there. But that's why it's so important to be looking at some of these leading indicators. And another one that I think people don't pay enough attention to is the satisfaction of your development teams, frankly. Like developers love building things and they love solving problems. And if they're just fixing bugs, or when they try and build something, it just takes forever and they've got to kind of untangle this mess to try and make sense of it, then they're going to be pretty grumpy, frankly. And that's usually a good sign. And if like in every retro and every showcase and all the different things that you do when you're in the development cycle, developers are complaining about technical debt, that's also probably a good indication that we might want to invest in it and put some effort into it.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah, well, the last time I wrote code was in COBOL, so you can age me there. But when you talk about these older systems and they still exist, it's amazing. How do you keep up with customer needs today and the front line of innovation and new releases and new products while working through all of these legacy challenges?
Well, I mean, the answer is it's very difficult. It's not easy. And that's why there's basically an entire industry built around it. It's like for example, using COBOL as an example, because that's a really good one, right? So it's definitely before my time. So, if you showed me COBOL code, I probably wouldn't recognize it. But like one of the things that we've been working on is how can you use, tools that help you understand code with like knowledge graph relational systems with like Gen AI to be able to interrogate these systems. And we've actually, we've run a few pilots now with clients where we're seeing that, in the past they were like, oh, you have to get time with the COBOL SME and you can only have an hour like a month because everybody wants them. And so be able to understand the system so that you can kind of build new component parts of it. Because that's really something that there's many different ways of tackling technical debt. And in the past, people would be like, well, that's old. Let's rewrite the whole thing. And then you get in the situation, which I've seen over and over of like, oh yeah, we've got like 4 versions of that system. Was that through acquisitions? No, we keep having another go at rebuilding it, and we never quite get it right. So we've always advocated for this kind of incremental rewrite of your systems. Another way we talk about is like a thin slice approach. So like, what is the like new area that you want to innovate in? And if it's reliant on one of these old systems and you want to take that out of the old system and put it into a new architecture, a more modern code base for a whole host of reasons that you might decide to do that, then, do it kind of one component at a time. But in order to do that, you have to have the existing system under test and you have to be able to understand it. And those are like difficult things to do without the expertise. And that's where you end up with these like single points of failure. So we've been looking at how can you leverage Gen AI with other tools to create basically like a knowledge base of the system that you can then interrogate and ask it questions. And one client was like, wow, this could save like so many, thousands of people hours that we waste on just trying to understand the system and have confidence. So that's like one way to start tackling it, but it's a constant effort is what I see, right? You get to a place where you pull apart the things that are important to you and that you want to change. And I think the other reason we kind of advocate for that incremental approach is that it's kind of common knowledge that not every part of a system is actually used, right? And when we build features in systems, like when do we retire those features in those systems? Like when we talk to our customers about what features they use, and I've had customers say this to me of like, well, we have to keep that feature because we've got these 3 customers. And I'm like, out of all the customers you have, you're going to keep it for those 3 customers. Maybe you could look at, migrating those customers onto the other system. But I think that's one of the other challenges is that it's not just about modernizing the software, right? you have to change like how the business thinks about it, and the fact that, you know, why do companies have so many of these systems, even if it's not through acquisition? It's like, well, they didn't migrate the customers, or it never quite got the, you know, all the features that we wanted to. And to me, that's more of a business problem of like, have you prioritized the right things? Are you focusing on the right way? So that's why we talk about a thin slice of like from business problem to like the bottom of the stack. Like, can you pull apart and identify the important pieces and then, you know, modernize them and build out new platforms and products off the back of those. And then for stuff that you know, you don't need to change, right? You know, so you don't have to do the big rewrite. Just make sure it's under test and you can have confidence in it. Because I think another big part of technical debt is the cross-functional concerns that, you know, don't quite get prioritize. And at ThoughtWorks, we have like a laundry list of about 40 of them, but I'm talking about like performance and maintainability and security and all these abilities you have to concern yourself with that, you know, based on customer behavior and so many other things that, you know, that those requirements change over time as well. And they're not feature requirements. They're like requirements of the system, requirements of how the system performs and how it behaves and how secure it is. And it's often, you know, challenging unless there is a big issue to get those things prioritized.
Wow, amazing insights. So it sounds like you're quite bullish on AI and Gen AI helping teams be more efficient and innovative despite all of the hype. Is this a reality today in terms of making or helping teams work faster, better today?
I think it is, and it can be. I mean, we're in the early days, let's be honest. And just a note on the hype cycle. I think about the hype cycle more like I've been breaking it up into like systems that, you know, products and services that you put to your customer or your client versus like internal operations. How do you make your organization more efficient? And most organizations are looking at it from that perspective. Like, oh, how can we make our sales team more efficient, or a marketing team, or knowledge management, or how can we solve these problems? And that's great. Those are all, you know, good things to solve. But when it comes to like customer facing challenges, then you've got, you know, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt there, right? Like you don't want to put something out. There's, you know, AI systems by definition have like a non-deterministic nature. Like you don't want to put things out there that your customers can't trust or are going to create headline news. So people want a lot of more confidence in these systems. So we have been focusing on evals, which is like, how do you have some confidence and test this non-deterministic output of these systems? And that's just one of the problems that you have to solve for us to really be able to get through the hype cycle, because I think we're hitting this kind of trough of disillusionment of like, sure, I can create like a customer chatbot, but like I can't do anything else because I have to deal with this security issue and I have to have absolute confidence in the output, and I have to. So we're kind of working through those problems. But back in the space of like, how do you make your internal functions more effective? If you think about building software as one of your internal functions, then I think there's applications right now, because again, like there's less risk there, right? Like if you want to try using tools to help teams be more effective, to like share contexts, like share the architectural context in a prompt and things like that, like there's not a lot of risk there. Like I think the risk might be, if we go back to the idea around a legacy system, is, well, what if it gets it wrong? Like, what if the chatbot gives me a wrong answer? Well, you know what? Humans get it wrong too, by the way, right? Humans give you the wrong answer some of the time. We are not 100% accurate ever. So I think there's real like ways that we can use those things now. But I think from a customer product perspective, there's a lot more risk and concerns. And I think that's going to be much slower.
Oh, well said. And what role does senior leadership play in managing these challenges, technical debt, for example? You know, in most industries outside of tech, you know, business leaders, the board, the C-suite, I mean, they're not developers or engineers, they're bankers or financiers or, you know, what have you. And so this can be an overwhelming topic. What are some of the best practices there?
Yeah, this one's a real tough one, right? Especially if you don't have like technologists in the boardroom, which is something we've been advocating for as the world has changed over the last, 10, 20 years. Like it's difficult to have a board that doesn't have technical people on it, at least one who kind of gets what's going on. and the issues that eventually, like I talked about some of the short-term, localized issues, but the big kind of headline making issues, nobody wants those. And so a lot of it is like getting is how do you build it into how you think about building products, right? And when you think about like product teams, don't just have them measured on number of features or features that they get out or the value of the feature, but making sure that when it comes to how we budget for these teams, you're also thinking about, innovation, of course, but also like how are you evolving and improving the system and the quality of the system. So having product teams and product managers own the whole thing end to end. And this is this whole concept that many, of Silicon Valley have been saying for years of like, you build it, you run it. Like that changes how people think about things like technical debt. When you've got separation of concerns, then you're going to inherently, you're going to have conflict of like the product teams being like, well, we just need to build more features. And the people that have to run the system being like, well, you're just creating more and more problems. And when are we going to solve these problems? So making it part of the whole product team, I think is a very important operational, like how they organize themselves, way of starting to solve this problem. But I think when it comes to big areas like a big legacy modernization or knowing that a system's not performant or not secure, I mean, I think those things get prioritized and do these days kind of hit the board level. And I think there's been enough, I guess, media and understanding in business leaders at this point that they do have some conceptual understanding, at least of the risk of the issues that it creates, even if they don't understand, like when we talk about technical debt, what do we mean? How do we define it? And like you said at the start, everyone has their own definition. Like even if there is a real definition, it's just one of those things and people put so many things underneath it. The important thing is like, are we solving, the critical risks in the system, and using one of the things I love about a lot of the agile practices is the scouts rule of like, leave it better than you found it, right? Like you go in and touch something, like make it a little bit better, don't make it worse, with obviously an understanding of the constraints of we're under pressure, that we don't have the time, but like, okay, well then make sure you've got the budget and investment to go back and fix some of those critical risks later.
Oh, really well said. So looking forward, we talked about AI, Gen AI. What other sort of emerging technologies or practices are you most excited about at ThoughtWorks right now? What's on your mind?
It's a good one because you would think that I'm just the chief AI officer the way that, focus has been for the last year, but there are other things that we're exploring. We've been doing, we have a lot of presence in the automotive field, and we've been doing a lot with software-defined vehicles over the last few years, which is, a very cool space. And I think embedded systems in general, and, they have kind of an old style way of building software. It's like they haven't kind of come into the agile world. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think cyber security is kind of a concern for everybody, and it always remains on the radar. And I think there's I think we're still in kind of wait and see mode with the XR and all of that, physical digital stuff. It's kind of in that emergent space. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a key part of my job is to keep my eye on the radar of things and see what the opportunities are on the horizon. But at the moment, nearly everyone, apart from like, the auto industry, is obviously still continuing to think about SDV and electric vehicle charging and all these things, which we're also working on with our clients. Most industries, it's like the innovation agenda is almost solely on AI. And as I said, I think in the customer product space, we might hit another little bit of a, trough of disillusionment, maybe not an AI winter this time, but like a bit of a trough of disillusionment. And then people might go back to like, so what were the other things that we were looking at as well? But yeah, that's where the money and the focus is right now, for sure.
Well, so much to talk about. Thanks so much for just a peek into ThoughtWorks and the amazing work you're doing. Certainly was all new to me. And thanks for your time and insight. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me, Evan. I'm happy to come back anytime.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for listening and watching. Until next time, take care.